Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. So don't be so quick to change those pickups till after you've watched this video. So when we go out and we buy a new guitar, we want to go buy a new guitar, which is pretty much every day, we're looking for specific things, right? Appearance, definitely up there. That's number one. That's the first thing most of us go for is the appearance. We're not looking so much at a brand specifically, or maybe we are, okay? But mainly we're looking at the appearance. Do we like how it looks? Does that excite us? Because it's gotta, right? Number two, we look for how it feels to hold the thing. How the neck feels. You know, is it a fat neck, skinny neck? You know, that sort of thing, right? Then we play it, probably unplugged it first, right? And we see, you know, acoustically, how does this thing sound? Because a lot of people are tone wood lovers, right? But either way, we still want to take a listen to see what it sounds like acoustically. You know, just get a feel for the play on it. Now, granted, not every guitar is ever set up properly that's hanging on the walls. We know it's going to need a setup regardless, okay? And pretty much every guitar I've ever bought has had to have a setup of some sort. So then we go and we plug it in, we check out the sound. We want to hear clean first. And we rotate the pickups. And if it's got coil tapping, we'll check all that stuff out too. Then the next thing we want to hear is the dirty side. We want to know what it's like dirty. See how well the strings bend? So then by the time we're done, sometimes we go, take my money, please. Okay, then we get it home, we plug it into our gear. And everything just changed. It's not sounding the same. It doesn't matter how many settings we try, it's just not giving us that same sound. Why? Well, here's what happens. And I've talked about this before, all right? When you're playing in a store with their gear, it's set up the way it's set up, generally not at ear level, okay? You really need to listen to the sound of your own gear at ear level. You're going to find the same thing. If you have your amp set up at ear level at home, basically on a stand like I do, so let me just move out of the way so you can kind of get the idea here. So I've got my amp set up on one of these angle stands. So the sound pretty much hits my ears, right? And I'm close to the amp, so I'm not hearing room acoustics at this point, okay? If my amp was on the floor with the speaker facing and kicking against the wall, all that sound is hitting the wall, but it's also on the floor. The sound of the guitar completely changes without even changing the settings, whether it's volume or what have you. Nothing has changed, just a different position for the amp. So your best position for the amp is actually on a stand like this and at an angle, so that it can get to ear level for you. It also, if you're gigging, you need to get that sound out to the crowd too. So one of these stands is quite handy, okay, for any amplifier, all right? Very important. See, this is another thing too. You'll build all your patches at home for all your songs. Everything sounds great at home. You get it onto the stage. Totally different ball of wax. Why? You're dealing with a different venue than your bedroom, okay? This is a big thing. When you're at a music store, you're in a store, and that sound is going everywhere. And because you don't have the amp at ear level, And by your ear, okay, you're picking up all that sound. Okay, I've made the snare drums that Long McQuade and cymbals do crashy sounds, and I'm nowhere near them. They're on the other side of the store from me, and I'm not even turned up very loud either when I'm doing this. But sometimes I turn things up a little loud, especially if there's either nobody else in the store for customers or there's like one or two. I'll wail it, and it's kind of nice when you get to do that. But that interferes with me listening to a guitar, so I have to actually turn it down. And I got to get more at ear level with that guitar, with the amp. So I either have to kick the amp back or I have to, pretty much sit on the floor if I really want to hear how that amp sounds with this guitar. Now, the problem is I don't have that amp at home, right? Or if I do, that's great because that's the most fairest thing and you don't have to bring your amp with you. So my recommendation to stop screwing up, right, and blaming your pickups or the setup on the guitar necessarily, is to bring your amp. When you are shopping for a new guitar, bring your amp with you that you're going to be using. It's kind of like your go-to axe. You're going to buy a new amp, you bring your go-to axe. The guitar that you grab the most and use the most, that's the guitar you buy an amp with, all right? When you're buying a new guitar, you bring your go-to amplifier because some of us have more than one amp. I know I used to have several in here. Now I'm down to one amp finally, okay? And of course my pedal board is actually plugged into my mixing console, which feeds into my computer. And I'm not using that today, I'm just using the amp straight out. And I have a 24-bit Zoom H1 recorder picking up all the audio here. So you get an idea of my room acoustics because my amp is set up the way it is, but you're going to get my room acoustics in this video as well. And my closet doors to my closet are open too, so the sound goes through there. If I close those doors, you're going to hear a huge difference in sound, okay? Just by doing that alone. So before you start blaming your pickups, start looking at the fact that the first mistake you made was not bringing your amp with you looking for a new guitar. Okay, that's one. Okay. Number two, you're not at ear level. You need to be at ear level when you're trying out a new guitar with your amp. Okay? And if there is an amp in the store that's the same model as yours, I will guarantee you it will not sound precisely the same, but it will be more than close enough in sound to be able to judge it correctly if you have it at ear level. Okay, so you may or may not have to bring your amp. Likelihood, though, you probably will have to bring your amp, depending on how old your amps are. All right. So you could still end up in a situation where you may end up having to change your pickups, and that's fine. But try everything else first. There is nothing wrong with stock pickups. The stock pickups in this guitar, this is my Gibson Les Paul Studio, and it has a 57 Classic and a 57 Classic Plus in it. These are the stock original pickups that came with the guitar. The only thing not stock is everything gold on this guitar. Okay, that was a lot of money extra. All right, but I wanted it, and it suits the guitar, and that's how I wanted the guitar. So, and that's the other thing. I don't like chrome hardware generally. Okay, there's two guitars in my collection right now that are keeping their chrome. One is my Les Paul Special 2. Not a very expensive guitar, not really financially worth going to gold hardware, but I'd probably do it anyways if I wanted to. And I wouldn't care because I don't buy my guitars as investments. I buy them to play them. That's the difference. Okay? The other guitar that could probably go gold, but it's not going to, is my Fender Telecaster that I just got. Okay? I like those two guitars just fine the way they are. However, my two Les Pauls that have gold on them, one came from the factory that way, my Epiphone Custom Pro, and it came with its pickups with gold covers, which is nice. And of course we have my Les Paul Studio, which I ripped off all the silver and went all with gold, and I added on a string butler to this. I didn't need a string butler for my Epiphone. It holds its tuning just fine. So the only other thing I changed on my Epiphone Special, I put on my Custom Pro, sorry. I put on the poker chip in gold, and the knobs I finally got rid of the what I thought were better knobs because they started to fall apart. And I hate plastic. And I put on metal gold knobs. I haven't put anything else gold on it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to. You know, it kind of depends. I don't want it looking too much like this thing anyways. You know, I want to keep them somewhat unique from each other. But clean or dirty, I love the sound of this guitar with these pickups. Now, my pickup height is slightly different than factory because I changed my pickup rings to these gold metal ones, and they are different height. They're actually slightly taller than the plastic ones. So my height adjustments are very close to original, but not quite the same. And I like how they sound. I like it. That's the big thing. You have to like your own stuff. But I like them. So why do I have an Epiphone Les Paul? How come I have two other Epiphone Les Pauls? Well, the Special 2 I got for $80. I couldn't say no, right? And I've wanted one for a long time. And of course the other one, my Custom Pro Les Paul from Epiphone, I wanted that one too because it has something this doesn't. Phase reversal for the pickups, all right? That is a completely different ball of wax, and the pickups are completely different too, so it generates sounds and tones that I can't squeeze out of this thing unless I were to put those pickups in this. And I'm not going to change pickups just for a couple of songs. It's pointless. So why not just buy a guitar that has what I need in it already, and away I go, right? Now, I'm not saying that I haven't changed pickups on guitars. I've done it on probably at least 5 guitars. I put a dual rail, single coil sized humbucker in a Peavey guitar. I put triple dual rails into one of my Strats. I did some work on a student's guitar with a dual rail, and then somehow that got burned out, and we just recently replaced with a whole new set of pickups, all straight single coils. I did my Chord X2. I took out the stock humbuckers and I put in Les Paul Zebra vintage coil wound humbuckers. Okay, they were really nice, especially for Chinese copies. And I put a set of vintage coil wound, I think there were 60s or something, noiseless vintage pickups into one of my Strats, right? So I've done a few pickup jobs. Now, was it a benefit from the Cort going from stock pickups to the Zebras? Definitely. I got a really nice kind of Les Paul vintage tone out of it that I was after. Sounded awesome. Okay, couldn't get that sound out of the stock pickups. So for that reason, I kept them in there because it did a few songs that worked out well with those pickups. The Strat, I did not like the staggered pickups that were in it. I bought a second Strat identical for a standard Strat, just different color of body. And it had the same staggered singles in it than what my other Strat had, but these staggereds sounded way better and more output for some reason. Don't know how or why, but I kind of left them there, and I was like, well, they're fine just the way they are. And of course, I've had many, many other guitars. You know, I've gone through literally hundreds and hundreds of guitars over the years of playing, okay? And amplifiers, and pedals, and this kind of gear, and that kind of gear. You name it, well, I can't say you name it, I've done it, but, you know, I've been through a boatload of gear. Even in the last 4 years, I have gone through tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear, okay? All to be the end result of I own 4 electric guitars and 2 acoustics. Out of all that stuff, right? I went from higher end amplifiers, higher powered amplifiers, lower powered amps, to finally settling on my Roland Cube 40 XL. It's a great amp. I really love it. Does the job for everything that I need. I'm happy with it. I've got my Boss GT100 pedal board. Could not be more happy. I have had the GT1000. Really nice board, but there's no way I could ever use it to its potential. What's the sense of having it when I can have all the same stuff except in Cosmtech in the GT100? And I don't mind Cosmtech sounds. I actually find they're well, I found the sounds in the GT1000 to be extremely good for digital effects, but the more analog-y sound of the GT, that's kind of more my alley. Either way, I still got to program the thing, and the programming is very much identical to the GT1000, and I can still change my pedal order any way I want. So yes, bonus. But at least the GT100 I can use to its max potential, which is great. And for all the kind of musics that I do, types of music, genres, and so on, the GT100 is more than going to cover it till the end of time for me. So this is the big search for gear. Sometimes we go through a lot of gear just to finally get what we need in the end. Now there's only one guitar missing from my collection that I really want really bad, and that is the Taylor Koa Deluxe. I believe it's the 224 if I remember correctly. It's a little over $2,000 Canadian for it, but worth every penny. Has the same kind of a finish as my Les Paul Studio here. It has a Smokehouse Burst. It's kind of got this sort of a tone going on with that Koa, and I really like it. It's a nice guitar, plays great, sounds great. It's a little bit, in some ways, a little bit more robusty than my 114 CE, but in other ways a little bit smaller too in some areas. So it's kind of a really neat guitar, the Koa, and eventually I'll have it. And of course I've got my keyboard. I've got my Yamaha DGX 660, and I've been after this keyboard for a long time. It's just taken a while to work up the ladder to getting it, but I finally got it. So, and a couple other goodies I got kicking around. So I'm quite content now with what I have for everything I ever need to do, right? Now, pickups. Stock pickups in this one, stock in my other two Les Pauls, stock pickups in the Tele, and the Tele pickups are staying stock. That whole guitar is staying the way it is. Those stock pickups in the Tele are really, really great. In fact, if I remember correctly, they are the same pickups in the Fender Players Series Telecaster, okay? So the pickups are no different. The Player Series, of course, is made in Mexico. My Tele's made in Indonesia because it's a classic vibe 50s. And I like the 50s classic vibe way better than the Player Series, okay? Just so much better of a guitar and literally about half the money, okay? And definitely a way better guitar in my books. So I know when I went through two Player Series that were both defects, and it's like, forget it, Anyhow, so before changing your pickups, think about maybe adjusting your pickup angles and heights. Check that out. Maybe that's all you need to do. But also be aware that when you are checking out a new amp, you want to buy a new amp, bring your go-to guitar. You want to check out a new guitar, bring your go-to amp. It is the only way you're going to really know what's going on with your gear. So this way you don't go home and go, man, did I just waste, X amount of dollars on a new guitar or X amount of dollars on a new amp, because things are just not the same. And you will still find differences, because if you're standing up and playing versus sitting down and playing, if you're further away from your amp and instead of being closer to your amp, you will notice differences, and you will always have to make adjustments. And if you are a person who's a touring musician or you're gigging, you're going to find from one venue to the next, even with the same patches, you're going to have to make adjustments to those patches on your pedal board, or you're going to have to make adjustments to your pedals if you're using separate pedals for the different venues to recreate your tone for those songs. It's something that just has to happen, okay? But I don't really think there's a such thing really as a really super bad pickup. There are some pickups that just, there's no helping them, but they are good enough for a beginner, because beginners don't need to be worrying about swapping pickups. What they need to worry about is learning how to play guitar properly, okay? But the sound thing, you find your sound as you go along as a player. You will eventually find your sound you're after in the end, okay? But anyways, so that's what I got for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video and you got a lot out of it. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. But otherwise, until next time, catch you later.